Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
Take refuge in the transcendental truths we call Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Welcome everyone to 2025. This is the first of the Sunday meetings this year. And I'm curious if there's anything in particular on people's minds tonight. Any experiences, insights during the holidays, or in particular themes. So Rokin has got the microphone in his hot little hand. And anybody has anything to say or suggest? Online. Mm-hmm. There is nothing more powerful than your spiritual practice, than our spiritual practice. There is nothing more powerful than our spiritual practice. And by spiritual practice, I mean the ability and the practice of bringing the mind into accord with reality, seeing through the confusion, the plethora of distorted views, to actually look directly at our lives is an enormously powerful thing. And what that means is we are looking directly through the assumptions, through the conditioning, through the old habits that we have, that have been, that we've grown up with, that encrust our life. All of us have grown up in this particular culture, in this modern age, just subjected constantly to advertisements, constantly to shoulds and oughts, and we have, of course, inherited many of those. We've inherited many assumptions and expectations about ourselves and society and others. And spiritual practice, as I'm going to define it now, is looking through those assumptions, looking through those expectations, looking through the habituation into reality. And then seeing what is shorn clear of the detritus, the flotsam and jetsam, the scales. We then function, we then act in our particular unique life with clarity, with a clear mind and a bodhisattva heart. We have, we just did a retreat of a great vow, which was looking at the nature of mind, and I was especially interested in exploring the nature of thought, thinking, the word thinkings, or the visual thinkings that people do. People think in different ways. We don't all think the same way. There's some people that think in sentences, and some people think in flashes, and some people think in colors, and some people think in textures, some people think in pictures. There's lots of different ways of thinking. Especially, in school, we kind of are inculcated in a particular way of thinking, but that's just a particular way of enculturation. There are people who think in terms of music. And looking at the nature of thought, and how does thought, the unexamined thought, how does thought create friction? Great suffering. Part of what we're looking at. And the other is I was making a distinction during this retreat about the difference between palliative or soothing or calming, calm abiding, equanimity practices, and the practices of insight, the practice that begin looking at the fundamental assumptions. Now, in a way, we can say they're like two Venn diagrams that overlap. But looking at them as separate things, from the side of calmness, it is imperative that we learn how to calm our particular nervous system, that we learn the strategies, the tools, the techniques to be able to be present with equanimity, with clarity. And there's tools for that, and there's lots of different practices for that. If we are in a tradition, or if the way we are practicing is calmness and equanimity and clarity, and mindfulness in that sense is the practice, then we often have the experience of 2 days after the retreat or an hour after the meditation, we suddenly find ourselves reactive again. I've seen this countless times that over the years, people will do a long session, they'll do a 10-day session, they'll do a month of practice and feel really, really good. Everything is smooth and bright. Our closing circles, we've done hundreds of closing circles. They're always, everybody's always enthusiastic, always feels grateful. It's reliable. And then, as you all know who've been to retreat, you go to a retreat and you come home and suddenly, the dog has thrown up all over the floor and the mice are running everywhere and your partner is not doing what they should be doing and your job just got fired, you just got fired, and suddenly, within minutes sometimes, all that calm equanimity is fractured. We find ourselves right back into habitual mode. Or, what's even also common is we're feeling pretty good about practice, we find some clarity, equanimity, great, hallelujah, I'm very, very happy anybody does that. And then we go home, or our kids come home, depending upon which end of the spectrum you are, and suddenly, all that calmness and equanimity gets disrupted. If you're an older person, your kids come home and they stir everything up. If you're a younger person, you go home to see your parents and it stirs things up. It happens on both sides of the spectrum. So it is important to know, is the practice that I'm doing, is its primary focus the essential goal of calmness and equanimity? Without calmness and equanimity, we can't do anything else. We can't really go deeper in practice. We have to have that peace. But if we only have the peace of calmness and equanimity, then it's ruptured easily. So the other piece that is essential is the piece that looks into the root of suffering. For the sake of this talk, I'm calling it sort of the curative process. The piece that looks into the fixed beliefs and assumptions and conditioning that we have carried with us, that has grown up around us for decades. In some of our cases, more than a half a century. If we don't have calmness and clarity, if we don't have the ability to be settled and be present, we can't really investigate the habitual mind, the conditioned mind. On the other hand, it is possible that people can have an insight beyond the conditioned mind, and if they don't have any calmness and stability, it can really fracture their world. It can become very unstable. Because if the mind full of assumptions is actually seen clearly and it breaks open, you're left with a very different world. If you don't have a foundation of solid practice, equanimity, and centeredness, then it's really hard to integrate those two. So it's always very, 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 very vitally important to have the practices of calmness, clarity, and equanimity. But if we don't touch our fixed ideas, if we don't begin examining the fixed ideas that we have under the surface, then as soon as they're touched again, boop, there we are, back with the reactive mind again. And how do we touch those fixed ideas? First off, we have to notice them. And the way we notice that we're encountering a fixed idea, that we're encountering a fixed belief, that we're encountering old habitual habit things, is when our mind has friction. When reality is acting in one way and the world is acting in one way, and we have a lot of friction, reactivity, we have a lot of unhappiness with it. We get angry, we get resentful, we feel something has been touched that's not right. Not good, not bad. But for a practitioner, it's simply a sign. There is something to be examined in my own heart. Something to be examined in my own heart. Now, in the world, of course, in most of the way many people, all of us at times have thought, is if there's a problem, we got to get somebody else to fix it. There's a problem, and they're not using the copy machine correctly, and let's get them to fix it. And there's a problem, and they don't know how to communicate. Let's teach them how to communicate. And there's a problem, and they're not being on time and responsive. There's a problem. Let's teach them how to be on time and responsive. Let's teach them how to be compassionate. Let's teach them how to have a bigger view. Let's teach them. 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 And it is pretty hard to teach a pig to sing. Really, just think about that. We say, okay, I see how things, especially if they don't want to sing, I can see a path away, but nobody else is interested in it, and I'm going to force them, make them, trick them. I'm going to trick them into following my path. Maybe it seems like it has a little efficacy once in a while. But when we run into friction and we say, oh, there is something to be learned, and we turn our eye here, there is something to be learned. We first can examine our thinking, our expectations. Whenever we are angry, it's because we have expectations about how things should be. And or deeper, more deeply held beliefs that we think are who we are. So what we were doing this weekend, we were examining the nature of thought, because expectation is intimately connected with how we think. And the fixed beliefs that we have, maybe they're inchoate, maybe they're apprehendable except by their reaction, or unapprehendable except by the sensation. But they emerge as thought. So let's look at thought. Now, so let's do a couple of experiments this evening, just with the nature of thought. Because when we see the true nature of thought, suddenly there is a freedom we didn't imagine. There's a world that opens up. If we see the true nature of thought, the inner critic is no longer an issue. It's just information. And how would you be if you were not at the mercy of the inner critic, the inner judgmental mind? So let's look at the nature of thought, which the inner critic is just thoughts. And the way, maybe you've done this before, but it never hurts to do it 1,000 times. I always, when I'm doing this kind of exercise for myself, I try to make the simplest thought possible. So I use the thought of one. It could be mouse. It could be, any one very simple, probably one syllable is best, moo. One syllable, one syllable. So everybody here, write down the word one. Now, the object of meditation is that thought one. So the first thing is, bring that thought one up and notice what happens. Thinking one. What happens?
It didn't last very long.
Didn't last very long. Flips away. When people think of the word one, how do you think of it? What's the how do you know you're thinking of the word one? What happens that you think, oh, I'm now thinking of the word one?
You hear it?
You hear it?
One.
Okay, that's one way.
There's a visualized symbol.
And what's the visualized symbol look like in your case?
It's like a very blocky white one.
Blocky white one. Huh? Okay.
I saw O-N-E.
O-N-E. Uh-huh.
And then I saw the number one.
And how did the number one look? The digit one?
Like at the football games.
Number one.
Like a hand, finger?
I saw a dice rolled to one.
Nice with one, yeah.
Mine was a black one in a serif font.
Wow, black one, the serif font.
I saw a rocket. A rocket.
Oh, uh-huh. And what was the one? Was the one was the locket? Mm-hmm. Isn't that so interesting, Kosha?
I suddenly feel my mouth and throat form the word as if I was saying it.
True kosher way. Nice, thank you. Isn't it interesting, just the asking people to think about one, and we get everything from sound, the sensation of the throat, we get visual things, we get digits, we can't even think of the word one in the same way. Isn't that interesting? Now imagine what we're all hearing as we're doing a Dharma talk. If we don't even think of the word one in the same way, my goodness. What does that say about the ability to communicate with somebody else if I say the word one and you hear something totally different? Just interesting. So, we try to think of the word one in any of the ways that you do it. Sound, image, feeling. We had one woman at the monastery who used to think in textures. So she would have certain textures would mean different things to her. When you try to hold that idea of one in your mind, what else happens? What else do you notice when you try to do that?
You get different images, different interpretations.
Okay.
It changes.
So it changes. So it's not just a static thing, but it actually changes. Okay? What else?
You start to think about possibilities for that.
Okay.
Authenticity.
All right, so then not only can we stop thinking about the one, but immediately the implications of one, start going on, and one locket and one piece of cake, and the oneness of the world, and wonder, and the proliferation of fantasy. Okay.
Suddenly all of the other stimuli around me become a lot more interesting and increase their competition for my attention.
Now that's interesting. So when you think about the concept one, and you try to hold your mind on that, then suddenly there's all these other distractions that become more vibrant. Interesting. Anybody else? Pablo?
It's not really my thought. It's kind of when you presuppose the thought of one, actually you've forgotten to put attention that you also put another thought around it, like think and thought.
Okay.
So what actually happens in my mind, if the thought once comes to it, it's a very strange echo of some transformations, and that's what I see. It's not mine.
Okay. Now let's follow what Pablo says is not his. Let's follow this along a little bit more. If we look at the concept one, the idea one, however you see it, where does it come from? Before it was in your so-called mind, if that's where it was, where was it? What happened? How did it arrive? What is your experience?
It arrived from the vibrations of your mouth saying one.
Okay, so it was incipient, it was in my mouth, in my mind, and then I kind of put it in yours.
Yes.
here, I give it to you. You now have a one.
And then I was waiting for more.
There's only one. What else do you notice about? You're looking at the origin of this very simple symbol image. What, before you're aware of it, where was it? Before you're aware of it, where does it come from? What do you notice?
You have pre-formed associations with the word. You have preconceived associations with one, so it's those images that start popping up.
Okay, so you have a whole matrix of associations, and I drop the word one in, and suddenly they proliferate. Oh, okay.
It's an old concept that my mom taught me when I was a baby.
What's the concept?
One.
Oh, So you remembered to be told that?
You're counting my fingers
Oh,
and my toes. Yeah, one.
Great.
One of the first things I ever learned.
Very, very fundamental. Yeah.
Seems that my experience of doing this now is that there's nothing. There's no action, it's just sort of off screen and then it's on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. No action. The screen is empty, and then suddenly, boop. Kanse, were you going to say something?
No, I wasn't really interested
Oh, okay.
in it, but the question what's coming up for me is the tension of trying to do a practice to put the attention somewhere, and it feels like it's an effortful thing, and the conflict in doing that.
Okay.
Like,
Now,
recurringly maintain the one, generate the one.
right, well, in order to, yes, as Tegan pointed out, in order to maintain the one, you have to keep saying one.
Which maybe that brings into your breath, etc., and very active, like trying to maintain that thing as this kind of disharmonious, hopefully pulling that feels like being at odds with like integrity of actual breath.
Now what we're doing is we're doing a very, very simplest practice we possibly can. Just honing it all down to that concept one. And watching, it wasn't there, and suddenly it's there. Mind is quiet, empty. Someone says one. And whether it comes in from the outside or whether it comes in from the inside or whether it just appears, it comes mysteriously. Isn't it?
I was thinking about, you said, where was it before we thought of it? And in a way, the thinking of it is all of the humans who've ever tried to count things in the history of the world speaking to us.
Mm-hmm. And there is a deep truth there, which we're going to sidestep. Because right now I want to just I want people to see the ephemerality of thinking. Okay? It is the ephemerality that anything comes into the mind, instantly it changes. And as Tegan pointed out, in order to even keep a simple thing like that going, it won't stay by itself. You have to just keep regenerating it, right? You have to keep saying one. Or thinking the equivalent thing of one. Because anything that comes into the mind changes instantly and usually disappears. Is replaced by something else. Joe.
There's an intention to think one, but then how does that arise?
That is pretty interesting.
At some point, it's just things arising. Because the intention didn't arise from an intention of the infinite regress. That's not my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm honest about it, it just arises.
Right. So I would propose that if you look at a thought, and we're trying to use the micro thought, the nano thought here, that it just arises. Anyway, it has nothing to do with you. It just arises and disappears. It changes. Now, that's true with sentences too. You know, I'm a jerk. Anything, any descriptive sentence just arises and disappears. I am the world's most brilliant. We can think anything. You know, I'm a pink and blue fish. Any thought that we have has those same properties. It's imminent, it's mysterious, it comes out of nowhere, it lasts for a flicker, if we could even measure it, it disappears. If we try to actually put our finger on it, or put a probe on it, or put a laser on it, or put an electrode on it, we can't. You know, you might wire the brain full of electrodes, and what you get is you get electronic signals, but you don't get the one that we're thinking about. So it's unfindable. So now, if we really truly see that, the old habits of mind of who we think we are, they're all made up of thought. Our judgments of the world are all made up of those same ephemeral, flickering, unsubstantial, unfindable thoughts. The world is made of thought. Now, so the corollary to that, of course, is the whole black box experiment, that we talk about, or idea is that, the brain is enclosed in this black cranium. It has no access to anything directly. It receives everything through secondary inputs. It receives photons through the optic nerve and, kinesthetic wave motions through the optic nerve and, so on and so forth. And it takes those things and makes up a world. We have receptors in our brain. I'm looking at different levels here. We have receptors in our brain that see a straight line versus a curved line, that see that it can put two lines together and make a parallax view and see depth. We have receptors that can easily go awry, and we can lose certain functions. So everything is coming into us, our mind does something with it, and then we end up with a world. So go.
This is a good thought exercise. This is a good thought exercise where we contrive a word that has no context to our real word. And then we say, well, in order for that to persist, we need to have some energy behind it. I'm speculating, but the moral of the story is we are in control of our thoughts and the amount of energy we choose for a thought to persist or not. In the real world, however, thoughts just appear. And depending upon our ability of recognizing whether that's a beneficial or not beneficial thought to us, we take some action. The two observations.
Okay, excuse me, I realize, I apologize, people online, we are not passing the microphone. We'll start doing that. And so here's the microphone for your two observations.
So two observations. It rarely, so for these thoughts to persist, I don't feel like I'm exerting any energy. One. Right, so three thoughts. One. Mm-hmm. Number two, it feels like positive thoughts are a lot more ephemeral than negative thoughts.
Interesting.
Negative thoughts seem to have an inertia heavier
Mm-hmm.
than the positive ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure I can phrase this as a question as much as a quandary.
Great.
And I don't know if other people feel this way.
It's a wonderful quandary.
And I don't know what is the practice that, what is the endeavor that would help us recognize this in the moment and bring us back to something better.
Thank you. Do you have any response to Sogol? Yeah. Choan? I mean, I'll give you a response, but I want to.
I think this is consistent with what you were saying, but as we were sitting there and you were saying one, and you said I am care, and something else, I really noticed that they just show up, like your words prompt, but the thoughts just show up. But with each of them, it's not in isolation, it comes with a sensation, like a physical, sensory, more emotional flavor experience. It's like a package. Just even in that instant of it's not there and up there, it's there, but it's never just a thought. It always, for me, sitting here tonight, has been especially vibrant. It's always that moving, shifting package, too.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, Diane?
I was thinking about one, and I thought and felt alone. And then you said, we are all one. And I thought, why didn't I think of that?
So it's interesting. Thank you all for. And Soga, please, if I've forgotten your question, remind me. I'll come back to them. It's so interesting that here we have this one little exercise. Think of the concept one. And what have we learned from that one little exercise? First, we've learned the body and mind aren't two things. We can actually feel them both. We've learned that nothing is held in isolation, that even if we have one, two, the exercise works much better if you have a deep, still, quiet mind, and then out of the deep, still, quiet mind, something comes up. It's more obvious. We have, if we look deeply, we would see what Esme was saying, that nothing is separate, that this is the one that the whole world is saying. It's all one vibration. And our individual ways is so different, so unique. The point of this particular exercise, the reason I think it's a curious and helpful thing, is that our negative thinking, which as Sokol pointed out, seems to have more weight to it, seems to continue, is the result of our beliefs, our fixed beliefs, that somehow we have a thought has arisen and we have a fixed belief that somehow that's true. Somehow that's true, that I really am separate from people. And then because we have it feels like it's verified in some way, there's a verity to it, then because that is a kind of clinging. We start clinging to these thoughts. And the clinging is completely abstract because the nature of thought is, but our clinging to them, our clinging to the ideas, is in a way what gives them the heavy weight, I think, in my experience. So, while the microphone's going to Esme, the point of this is we can lighten our burden by seeing the nature of thought and not having to believe the content. Esme.
I was so appreciating all of the care and nuance of practicing with this part of the body-mind. But I'm curious what other reasons to so intensely focus on the verbal, conceptual part of the body-mind, as opposed to this part, the heart or the gut. Like, why start with thought? Why not start with the non-verbal body-mind?
Well, part partly it has to do with I'm giving a talk. You know? What can I say? Just a talk. Paula had something to say? Paula is right here in the front row. Right, you're Paula, right?
Is serenity a matter of mental self-discipline?
What a wonderful question. Lots of people who are serene here. How do you answer that? Here, give it to Kosha. She has an answer. And then Patricia. Is serenity a matter of willpower? You just have to do your best.
I don't think so. In fact, we're talking about, I don't think that it came up earlier, the sense of agency in bringing the one in. But when I look deeper, as other people were saying, it just pops there. It wasn't something that I made happen, and there's a great mystery around that. I think for me, it's more a practice of surrender that brings a sense of serenity. Surrender that I am not actually in control.
Good, thank you.
My question was kind of connected. I was wondering whether you're proposing that I don't want to say the goal, but something like that, is that it's no different if we have the thought, I'm a pink and blue fish, or I'm a jerk. And, if I have the thought, I'm a pink and blue fish, it doesn't stick with me at all, it just goes. But if I think I'm a jerk, that's...
That's interesting. Why does one thought stick and one thought not?
Yeah, that was my question. I was saying that in practice they would be the same to me eventually.
Let's say all the colors in the rainbow are basically all the colors in the rainbow. Why do some of them stick and some of them don't? Some of them we have preference for and some of them we don't. We're going to have to wrap the great mystery up here in just a couple of minutes, but give the mic to Ji-san. So, the great mystery can't be solved, and yet liberation is the foundation of our being. Ji-san.
I think the most important thought for all of us is me.
You mean Ji-san? You mean you?
What is me? Who is me? And unfortunately, we all think that there's something lacking in us, and there is. Ourself. And we try to build a house of cards when there's no cards, and try to live a life with beliefs that unfortunately are that we lack what it takes to be loved and accepted and okay. And so that's why things are so problematic when they're negative, when they're about us, because we think that they are true, unfortunately.
Great, thank you. So that's a good place for us to wrap things up here. Fundamentally, we all can see things are whole and complete, lacking nothing. That is just the way the universe is made. That's just the way the universe is made. And then we have this idea of, somehow I am separate. And then as soon as we say, I am separate, all this whole thing come into being. A fundamental inquiry is, what is it that's separate? Where is this sensation of me? It comes and it goes. I forget it periodically. It comes back again. Where does it arise from? What is that sense of separation? And to actually hold that in the same way we were talking about holding one, to hold that inner sense of that and say, well, where does it come from? What is it? Is it? And of course, if we're thinking about this with words, we can't actually enter it. So we have to drop the words and enter it into the intimate experience of separation. Is there separation? Separation from what? And in that way we can actually get down to the root. You know, everybody is free. Everybody is free. It's just we get caught in these nightmares. These nightmares. We get caught in these nightmares because of our habituation, because of all the way we've been conditioned, because. And spiritual practice, the reason I said it is the most powerful thing in the world, is I think with awareness, with alert awareness, which is actually the only tool we actually have, with alert awareness, we have the possibility of recognizing, not creating, but recognizing what has always been true. So my wish for all of us in this new year is that be really curious, even about a little thing like one, or me, or anything. Be really curious and investigate it with the heart, as May was saying, with the faith that there's something miraculous that is being revealed right there. Thank you all.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.